Welcome to Shop Vlog number 34. These are the subjects we'll be talking about today, and some of them look pretty interesting, such as will listening to music in the workshop lead to hooks for hands? And do you poop while you read woodworking magazines? As always, we have some behind-the-scenes footage between segments, so let's get started. I had a joke that I planned on using to begin this segment, but I found that folks on the internet don't take jokes too kindly, especially not when discussing something as deadly serious as listening to music in the workshop. In my experience, there are two sides to this argument, both with extreme views. There are those who think any noise whatsoever is a distraction, and a single guitar riff might send their hands straight into the blade. And on the other extreme are those who listen to this modern hip-hoppy country music crap, which makes me want to dive into a saw blade. Now, as a well-known peacemaker, I want to bring the two sides to the middle. So for the sake of discussion, let's say you're the type of person that simply cannot focus on something if there is music playing in the background, or an audiobook or podcast, which some people find even more distracting. Then you absolutely should not listen to it. Not in the workshop, not while driving your car, not anytime you're operating dangerous machinery. There is no shame in that game. I totally support your decision because it's the right one for you. In my case, I don't find music or even audiobooks distracting at all. Do you know how I can tell if it's a distraction? You can test this for yourself. Turn on an audiobook or a podcast and do some work in the shop for an hour. For the sake of the experiment, you may just choose to avoid the power tools, but do some actual work that requires concentration. Then at the end of the hour, stop and ask yourself how much of that podcast or audiobook you even remember. The answer will depend on what you were doing, how much you were concentrating. The more you had to concentrate on what you were doing, the less likely it is that you heard what was going on in the background. Not because you made a conscious choice to focus on what you were doing instead of what you were hearing, but because humans have the ability to automatically focus their minds on what is most important at the given moment. If you're sweeping a floor, you're probably fully aware of what you're hearing. If you're doing math, or you're laying out dimensions, you're rushing to clamp together a complex glue-up or hand-cutting joinery, you're most likely missing large parts of the audio in the background. Now, if you're a neuroscientist, you can back me up on this. But in my experience, my mind automatically prioritizes what I'm doing over what I'm hearing. I'm never focusing on the audio at the expense of the tool. It's always the other way around. Maybe that's the result of experience with power tools, but I think it's just the nature of the human mind. If I'm writing an article at my desk in the office or doing something else that requires concentration while my wife is talking to me, I'm not hearing what she's saying because I'm focused on what I'm doing. I'm sure your spouse has yammered on while you're busy and later you realize you have no idea what they said. It's human nature. Music for me is even easier to ignore than an audiobook or a podcast which features the spoken word. I could not tell you the lyrics to many of my favorite songs. Music I've listened to for 30 years because music happens in the background and my work automatically claims the majority of my attention. Again, that's how my brain works. I understand that other people may experience things differently. Totally fine. You should do whatever is best in your shop. For example, if you believe using Bluetooth earbuds or headphones to listen to music in the shop is dangerous, don't do it. Of course, you might just use the pause button when you turn on a saw if you feel that's necessary for you to give your tools their full attention. Different strokes for different folks, as Gary Coleman used to say. In the last couple vlogs, I talked about some audiobooks I was listening to, and we may do more of those segments in the future. But I don't just listen to audiobooks, especially if I'm doing something that takes too much of my concentration and distracts me from the spoken word. I listen to a lot of music as well. In fact, when I set up this new shop, I installed a stereo system with speakers throughout the main shop area, in the finishing room, and in the office in the back. All of them are connected through an amplifier to the computer system out here in the main shop, through which we can listen to whatever we want. But for music, we usually listen to satellite radio, because I hate commercials unless they're in my videos. The shop has been shared by 4 people with very different music tastes. Mustache Mike doesn't listen to music. He's an audiobook man. Danny likes country, and I'm okay with that. I love Willie Nelson and Johnny Cash, for example, but I hate this new hip-hop country that's become popular. Some of those songs are literally banned in the workshop. I even made Danny change his cell phone ringtone. Pete favored classic rock, which I like too, depending on how classic it is. I'm not a big fan of the Beatles or the Rolling Stones, Van Halen, Kiss, AC/DC. I could take or leave most of their stuff. I'm not saying these aren't good bands. They all have songs that I really do like, but I don't think I would make it through an entire album from any of them. Most of us just favor the music from the time we were growing up. I grew up in the late 80s and early 90s, so naturally, I think Pearl Jam is the greatest band in the history of mankind. All the Seattle bands from the grunge era and a lot of the rock and metal from that time is great too. But I don't only listen to popular music. For example, I'm a huge fan of Tom Waits, who is a guy that you either love or hate. I also like contemporary music. For example, you could go to YouTube and find the soundtrack for the TV show House. That show had some of the best music on television. Speaking of television, there are monitors throughout the workshop, and sometimes I just turn on the news or stream something. But of course, that might be taking it a bit too far for those of you who struggle to concentrate. Let me know what you listen to in the shop in the comments below. Life isn't all about music. It's also about pooping. Years ago, Steve Ramsey made a project video about keeping books in the bathroom.
Open this door, John! You've been in there long enough! Nothing doing! I'm on the can, I'm reading, and I'm loving every minute of it!
I want to thank Steve for drawing attention to a subject that most of us are afraid to discuss, but all of us should admit to secretly reading in the bathroom. Granted, smartphones and 24/7 internet access has changed bathroom reading. I don't have to resort to reading shampoo bottles if I forget a magazine. In fact, I haven't had magazines in the shop bathroom in years, but we have debated it. Is it gross to have paper reading material in the bathroom because nobody wants to touch something that someone else has been touching while they make brownies? I admit the grossed out part of me wants to say, yes, that's disgusting. I don't think that I would touch a magazine I found in someone else's bathroom. And for that reason, all the magazines in this shop stay on the coffee table. But the logical side of me wonders, why not? Now think this through for a minute. What do you touch when you go in to drop kids off at the pool? Your clothing, and then you sit down. If there's a magazine nearby, you may reach for it, flip through a couple pages, and when you're done bombing the bowl, you put the magazine down. Only then do you work the booty mop. Nobody goes back to reading after that. You wash your hands, and then you leave. The magazine is only handled before the point of potential contamination. The pages then should remain unsoiled. Of course, you may consider anything that exists in the bathroom to be contaminated by its very nature. In that case, we should talk about your toothbrush or that towel hanging next to the sink. I'm just saying, if that magazine bothers you, think about how you handled your phone in there. At least I don't put the magazine against my face. Anyway, these are things we debate around here when we really should be working. So if your thoughts make it through the comment filters, you can add to the conversation below. Believe it or not, this fall we'll celebrate 10 years of Stumpy Nubs woodworking videos on YouTube. We'll talk more about that in the coming weeks, but it's a milestone I never expected to reach when I began, let alone the near 700 videos I've published so far. And when a person reaches a milestone like that, he tends to reflect on where he is, where he came from, and where he's going. Change is inevitable in life, and I think necessary, because without it, things just become stale. Take this channel, for example. I've been making some changes lately. Some really big things that you aren't aware of yet, and other more subtle things that you may not even have noticed. Earlier this year, we changed our video thumbnails from the old template to a brighter and, I hope, more eye-catching version. Even so, up until now, I have still tried to maintain the old color-coded system. For example, yellow thumbnails were for short tip videos, red for project videos, blue for tool videos, green for vlogs like this, and so on. But very few of our viewers have ever noticed the color coding, despite the fact that we've used it for years. And I have to say, the new thumbnail format makes some of the colors just not stand out so much, and that was the whole point of the change. I think the yellow thumbnails are the best. I also like the blue ones, but I'm not a fan of the purple, and I think the red and brown are just too dark. So I'm thinking of dropping the color-coded system and maybe just using yellow and blue for most of the thumbnails, regardless of the video subject. That said, we'll keep these vlogs green because people need to be able to quickly recognize the chatty videos so they don't have to be bothered by clicking on something they're not into. We'll also be keeping the cool tools video thumbnails the same, which were never changed. They're still the old format anyway. That series has quite a following, and I want those videos to remain easy to spot in your YouTube feed. There are some other subtle changes going on, two of which are on the screen right now, and a third is about to appear. I think we'll discuss those and the other small changes, plus the bigger changes that you're not aware of yet, in a future vlog as we get closer to our 10th anniversary. See you next time. It's just a couple of cuts. Your ears will be fine, right? They will be if you have your ISOtunes Bluetooth earbuds in, because you'd already have your ANSI certified hearing protection on because you're listening to your favorite music and podcasts. And you're supporting a small family business at the same time. Please use the link below this video to learn more and to show them you support what we do as well. Wait, don't go yet. If you're new here, please subscribe and remember to ring the bell. I would really appreciate that. Give us a thumbs up, or better yet, leave us a comment. I always read them. And be sure to check out the latest issue of Stumpy Nubs Woodworking Journal. It's always packed with tips, tricks, and tutorials designed to make you a better woodworker.